Man like Mark Sullivan, worry yourself. Stay tuned for the thrilling episode. Woo!
A positive mental attitude can clear away all obstacles which stand between you and your major purpose in life.
This is the Snowboard Project featuring Mark Sullivan and the Bead. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
Welcome back to the Snowboard Project. I'm Mark Sullivan.
And I am the Beav, and we are
in our third installment of Flite Week.
Third installment.
This is a pretty cool one. So this is where Eric Luthart and I design the Flite snowboard. We talk about the details. I had this idea in mind of a board that I didn't think existed, right? And yeah, there's thousands of boards out there, Beav, but actually this one didn't exist, as it turns out. Like,
did you do some deep research on looking at this and looking at...
You know, I did some research, but then Eric manufactures a ton of different boards, and I was like, does this exist? He's like, no, this doesn't exist. This is something actually different. And so our Flite Rocket 167 represents kind of a unique design in sport of snowboarding.
What were some of the things that you kind of thought about that you wanted to make this, to set this board apart from anything else?
Well, number one, I wanted to have a camber board, because I just like the way that they hold at speed. And the other thing is I wanted a significant taper. And the taper basically allows you to slash the tail, essentially. It allows you to loose the tail, but it also will track super fast and go in a straight line super fast because it doesn't necessarily want to turn, but then you can wash out that tail and schwack a bank or schwack a bank, yeah, and lay down just a mean slash. And so that's the idea. It builds speed, holds speed, and slashes.
There's some interesting kind of like tip and tail design as well.
Yeah.
Board.
Yeah. So that's kind of like, okay, so that's really where it ties back into the original Flite snowboards. Is like that tip shape, that tail shape, that is kind of derived from the 1988 to 1990 Flite Predator and Wave Hog board. So that's how this board ties back to the original Flites, you know, and all those original Flites had camber, but
so wait, Stevie Dara was putting those that tip and tail already in there before.
The tail shape and tip shape, those were kind of his creation. Actually, I helped design the tail. That was like my first contribution to the sport snowboard. Yeah, really.
Wow.
We talk about that, Chuck and I, in our I guess our next episode. So you'll hear about that tomorrow.
All right. Well, should we just roll into this? Eric Luthart, episode 21. You guys designing a board?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, episode 21,
Flite Week. Eric Luthart, back for part number 2. I'm just going to roll right through part number 2. So welcome back, Eric Luthart, part number 2 of the Snowboard Project. And I got something really exciting to you to do with you right now. And this is going to be something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I think we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to design a board with you. I've talked to you about this, back and forth a little bit, but I figured that people should kind of hear that process of designing a board. And the reason for this basically is that, like, even though there are thousands of boards out there, there isn't the board that I want for the riding that I do in Alaska. And I'll pay for the mold. I'll pay for these boards to get made, and I'll even give one away here on the podcast, because I think that my board, at least for big mountain riding, does not exist. And so I think maybe if people could listen in on us going back and forth designing a board, they might learn something. What do you think about that, Eric?
Well, I have no choice. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so my thing is that, like, I ride Alaska, and I don't think that the perfect board for Alaska exists. Maybe it's because there really aren't any people who have the consistency of riding Alaska every single year to really know what they like. or they're trying to do different things that I'm trying to do with their riding in Alaska. So first let me describe kind of the riding that I do. First of all, it's going to be really, really fast. I like to go, I don't even start laying down turns until I'm doing about 40 miles an hour. And then literally, because I usually carry like a little tracker on me. But yeah, 40 miles an hour, I start to turn. So it's got to be stable at high speed, right? And I like it to get on top of the snow first. But I also like to do these like super deep gouging turns, right? And like one of the boards that kind of influenced me was like a Burton Fish, which was like the first tapered board, right? And so I always really liked that design, but honestly, they don't make a fish capable of riding Alaska. It's like a little wiggle stick to me in Alaska. So,
Yeah.
so I want to come up with a design that will be super stable at high speed, but also get on top and be able to lay down those like really deep gouging, slashing turns, right? So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so I was going to say, so where do we go from here? That's what I'm looking for. How do we take this process forward?
Usually I go from basic dimensions. So like a size of a board that people are looking for. Like for instance, you say in Alaska, high speeds. I'm definitely thinking something. I'm not, and knowing you a little bit, I'm thinking something probably in the mid 160s, maybe upper 160s, maybe even a little bigger.
Yeah, let's call it a 168. That's the number in my head.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, 168, I'd probably give you something where it's got a little bit longer effective edge.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just because you're dealing with speed, it's fun. A lot of the boards I do with the longer noses, if they get too long, they can flop around a bit. You're riding steep terrain. You don't need as much nose lift as other boards. It's steep. People rode just straight up camber boards for years in Alaska. You can ride steep powder on a normal board, but I would say something. So you want your nose to be as stable as possible. So I'm not going to go like I don't think I need to go a super long, crazy nose.
Yeah. And I've heard two theories on that. Like you look at like those old school POW boards, and they just have like a foot and a half of nose, right? But then I've heard the opposite, which is like actually that is just scooping the snow or plowing the snow forward as you're riding in it, and so really almost a flatter nose is actually better for powder. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say a little bit lower profile. I usually do them keep a little bit lower profile, but I still always give it a little bit of a kick towards the nose, just a little something. That helps because sometimes you ride like just straight low profile when it is. So say you just made your run, but you got a long flat section to cruise through.
Yep.
Now you're starting to slow down a little bit. The low profile is nice to a point, keeps you up there, but there's a point too where it starts to actually like submerge a bit.
Okay.
If you're doing a cliff, for instance, where like your maybe landing's a little bit flatter, it's kind of nice to have just that little something, that little pecker sticking out there, just to kind of keep you up there. Just to kind of like a boat hole. Just a little something.
So compared to like a standard solitude nose, how would that rise be different? Like a standard like free ride directional board, let's say. How would that shape differ? A little bit flatter, about the same, or a little bit more?
Well, I would still give it like a little bit of a early rise, back. And for what you're doing, I wouldn't, like for instance, some people do like an S rocker type style where like the starts kicking up at the front foot. I don't think I would do that in this case. I would definitely I would have camber more closer to the nose.
Yeah.
But still have it get the early rise up there too. So probably like, 6 inches back from the effective edge, it'll start going up at a nice mellow. So you get that initiation of that flotation going.
Okay, cool. Because I definitely want camber, like full camber, right? And maybe it's just because I've been riding so long or whatever, but for whatever reason, those full camber boards seem to ride more consistently and be more stable at speed than the other kind of camber options.
Right, and if you start your early rise too far back, like like this way, you have both feet are cambered, so they're both on that same plane. So you push down, they're both working together, and yet you still have, and since it's so far, since it's closer to the nose, it's not rising so much.
Mm-hmm.
If you start your early rise too far back, by the time it gets to the effective edge, the widest part of your nose, it's going to be up, 15 millimeters, 12. That's where it starts getting a little funky for your speeds for what you're doing. So that's where I would start it a little bit closer so there isn't so much lift. So you have that stability, but yet you still have that flotation.
Yep, that makes sense to me. Now, what about like flex pattern? Right? I mean, I guess my guesstimation would be that like a stiffer flex pattern would be more stable at speed.
It's yeah. There's truth to that. Well, but there's also your material selection too.
Dampening.
Right. And since if you're riding powder, dampening isn't as important. And stability is probably not that big of an issue either. But dampening materials help with like the nose chattering, fluttering around, how it feels on the edge. Like we're doing PU sidewalls that definitely smooth out the ride quite a bit. Okay. So you don't feel the chatter. So if you get into a hard icy area, you don't feel the chatter as much. It definitely, like ABS sidewall, you feel everything. The board bounces around, and which can be fine in some shapes, but for this type of riding, I would want something that's going to, lock you in and not bounce around. You want the edge to be, locked in as much as you can.
Right. And honestly, you face some really variable conditions in Alaska. The top of the mountain could be like 3 feet of powder, and the bottom could be like just chopped up, icy, whatever, because just the weather can change in 5,000 vertical feet as far as the snow conditions and pack. So,
well, you're running a slush debris stuff that's probably maybe set up.
Yep.
So the top part's nice. The bottom part could be just a bunch of, death cookies or chunks of really bad stuff.
And the thing is, you want your board to smooth it out enough on that like variable conditions where you're just not going to get exhausted, because it's like if you do a bunch of runs in Alaska, they're big long runs. They actually take a lot of energy, even though you're not doing as many runs as off a lift. But the conditions, when you get into chopped up variable conditions in Alaska, it's tiring. And so the idea is that if you could just reduce some of that chatter or smooth it out in some way, that that would make your day a little bit longer, make it easier to ride a little bit longer that day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's probably, I say in snowboards, skis do it. They pay attention to the market a lot more so than snowboarding. Dampening is a huge area. We all talk about pop or how light it is, but we forget about how smooth is the board, and you ride different. I can make you the same board with 3 or 4 different constructions, and you'll quickly learn. One will be your standard construction that you can get on the market today, and you go ride that, and you'll be dead tired. You'll notice the difference real quick between having something that's actually smooth, not dead, but like absorbs chatter, keeps your edge on the snow, board isn't bouncing around everywhere.
So
super important.
Is that a function of how much rubber foil is in the board? Or are there different materials, a combination of different materials that contribute to that?
Yeah, there's different materials you can use. Kevlar is good material to use. You use hemp. We use a lot of flax. We also use alloys.
Yeah, like Titanol or something?
Yeah. Oh, that will definitely smooth out a ride.
Interesting.
But it just depends on how much and I've used that on boards for flow, but I realized I didn't want to use too much. I used too much, then the board's just dead, which is fine for racing, but not for everyday riding.
Right. So what, do you use like a Titanol stringer or pads underneath the whole pattern, or where would be the best use of Titanol?
I use it as a stringer right now. So we use it in the core in between the wood laminates. So
okay. So let's go with a little bit of Titanol in this board that we're designing. I'm serious about making this board. I want to have this product in my hand, and I want people to understand the process as well. So I think this is kind of a neat little idea here. So there's the the dampening and absorption, right?
Flex pattern. This gets a little tricky because there's different thoughts in this one too.
Okay, let's go over that.
So, like for instance, if I have it pretty damp, I don't necessarily need to make it stiff. People always think, oh, it's stiff, it's going to be able to hold up better because it's not going to bounce around. Well, you get kind of bucked around a bit more. If you want something, it gets a little tough. You might do something where I would maybe do a little bit stiffer in the front foot than in the back foot.
Why is that?
That way, there's a couple ways. One, the back foot releases differently. Mm-hmm. So you can maneuver around tighter areas. You can make a deeper carve if you need to. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're out in, like, say, you're out in Verbier or you're riding somewhere in France and you're riding, a 3,000 meter ice run, well, maybe, I would just go stiff all around. But having something of not a soft tail, but a little bit softer than the back area, a little bit softer than the front, you can get some interesting maneuverability. You can really round out a carve. You can that type of thing. Now, if you're just sitting there going, hey, I'm not going to make any quick turns, I'm just hauling ass, then I say, okay, we'll just make the tail.
Because I like to slash. I love to go up to a bank and just lay down the hardest hack that I can on a bank.
Right, and that's where I think that's why I kind of like the little bit. I'm not talking about a noodle of the back area. I'm talking about just a little bit softer than the front, so you can actually manipulate your arc. You can sit your carve. You can sit there and slash a bank. You can,
right.
going into a chute, for instance, riding steep. You typically ride your front foot more than your back. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of nice to have that maneuverability too. So that's why I have the front a little bit stiffer, so I can kind of get forward, get your weight on there, and you can kind of just windshield wiper your tail around a little bit.
Yep. Okay, cool. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So let's go with a little bit softer in the tail and firmer in the front, and maybe an overall medium plus flex, right? Not a plank, but something that's not going to chatter at high speed, because if you get into an avalanche, right, or you set off an avalanche, a lot of times your best option is basically going to be straight lining to 70, 80 miles an hour and then turning out. And I actually have done that before, where you literally straight line to 70, 80 miles an hour and then just lay down a huge sweeping turn so the avalanche will pass you by. So it needs to have that ability to be stable enough to, when you are going to try to outrun an avalanche, right? Which it sounds dumb just saying it even. But yeah, if it does break, one of your better options, if you can't get right to a point of safety, is to drop the hammer, go wide open, So.
Or play dead and the avalanche will ignore you.
Oh, yeah. Why hasn't that occurred to me before? Oh, because then you end up dead. That's why.
Hey, what's up, guys? Beef here. I know you're probably kicking back in your room with your headphones on, or maybe you're in your car on the way to work, or maybe coming from work, and I just want to say thank you for tuning in and listening. It is people like you that make this worth it for guys like Mark and I to make these episodes for you. Please do us a favor. Will you please rate us, share us, tell your friends, spread the word. We want to be able to keep making this happen. And if you can also go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project, you can check us out and you can help us keep creating these podcasts for you. We are an independent voice in snowboard media, meaning we don't have anybody that we are beholden to. We don't have anybody that says, hey, maybe you shouldn't talk about that, and that is why this is special. So thank you for being a supporter of that. If you feel like supporting us, or if you don't, hey, either way, at least you're tuning in. So please share, please like, please rate, please let us know how we can be better. Patreon.com/the Snowboard Project.
Okay, so now let's talk about side cut. So now you're starting to get this picture, I think, in your head. I am in my head of this board. Let's talk about side cut. and how that, do you want a super deep side cut? Do you want a mellow side cut? I think I've already mentioned taper, and I kind of got a number in mind for that. But let's talk about side cut and how that's going to work.
Yeah, I've been kind of consistent how I initiate some of my side cuts on these style boards. Mm-hmm. I'll look at how much early lift there is in the nose. So I usually do pretty big reverse radius at the nose area, the effective edge, the widest part. Yep. And that just helps. So it's not grabbing so much. If I run my side cut all the way up to the nose, then it just gets, because you're not able to get much pressure on the nose there, that part of the side cut. So I usually have something that kind of just like how your nose floats in powder, you want it kind of gradual. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the side cut. So it's nice and kind of gradual there. Allow the initiation. You're hitting rough snow, you're hitting hard snow, you're hitting chunks, you're hitting ice. So you want something that's not going to necessarily grab super hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'll run you through a scenario like with the nose shape anyway, and obviously this goes into the side cut, but it's I have done a heel side traverse over like a 500-foot cliff. Right? And if you do that, that's like super exposed. But if you were to bounce out of that single track over that cliff, you're dead. Like literally, It's talk about one of the most gripping moments ever is to do a slow speed heel side traverse with death in front of your toes 50 feet away. That is scary, straight up in snowboarding. So if you don't have any kind of sharp angles that could catch or bounce you out of that, I think that might be pretty good.
Yeah, because you're bouncing around, just not. I mean, the terrain's changing too. It's going up and down, and you're hitting chunks. So it's hard to, like I said, all your weight's way behind it. So you want something a little bit more gradual up there. Cool. So then after that, I would go into I'm not sure if I go into a progressive side cut, but something more mid-range for as a 68, and you're dealing a bit more speeds.
Yep.
So I might go, and it also depends on how much taper it is too. If you're running 30 millimeters of taper,
definitely
I would then
30.
probably go, I would probably go actually a little bit tighter.
Okay.
Not too tight. And then right before the tail, I would go mellow.
Huh, why is that?
That just helps keep the kind of like the same thing with the nose. It allows that release to be a little bit more gentle. It's better for tracking. So if I had a tight side cut and it's going all the way up, that also, your tail can also have an issue too with stability at high speeds. So I would just have a little area where I feather the side cut just the very edge, at the last couple inches.
Okay.
And that allows just the board to track a little bit straighter when you want it to, but you still have the tightness so it can carve, tight if you need to, stable at speed. So it's kind of a best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Best of both worlds. Best of all worlds, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So getting this picture of side cut. So what, like a 7.2 meter side cut? I mean, how big is this side cut we're talking about?
Well, I kind of go by how big the effective edge is on this. So 68. I probably end up being a 8. I don't know. I have to kind of take a look at it, but probably like a 8.3 side cut, 8.2 side cut, and that will be definitely tight enough because you're gonna have quite a bit of effective edge. So that's going to be, pretty good amount. A lot of custom boards you see out there, they'll probably be running closer to 9. Yeah. So I would think, and those are fun in certain conditions, but you can't whip those things around. You can't, you're kind of stuck in one type of turn. So this will allow you, if you go a little bit tighter, you have the stability at speed, but you can also whip that thing around. Because obviously, if you're in a place where you got to make a turn super quick, you're in an exposed area, you have, 20 feet to make a turn, or you die. you kind of don't want a race board side cut. You want something you can whip around a little bit too.
Yeah. So what would be then? How would it work? Let's go to an extreme example, just so I can understand this a little bit better. How would it ride if you put like a 5 meter side cut on it, like a super tight side cut? How would that change the way the board rides?
For this length, that would be great. It would be you could actually probably make it work, but you would have to basically detune the hell out of the side cut towards the tips to make it functional.
Why? Because it would want to be catchy?
Yeah, because it would be almost going, the edge would be almost going perpendicular to the direction you're going. The circle would be so tight by there.
Okay.
Like a 5 meter side cut is something we use like on a little kid's board.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to visualize kind of how the difference between like a 10 meter side cut and a 5 meter side cut on a board like this. Because I guess like the side cut's like maybe the darkest art of this whole part. I just don't. I mean, I've ridden all sorts of boards, but I had never really been a student of side cut. Let's say.
Well, like the one thing, like if you're like riding like a too tight of a side cut, and also too like a side cut, I look at the whole thing, not just the number in the middle. If I'm using, I look at also how it blends into the tip and tail. Those are as important as anything, really. Mm-hmm. So like for instance, if it's super tight, you can whip that thing around pretty quick. Mm-hmm. But at anything that speeds, it's going to always want to turn. It's going to fight you.
Doesn't the taper take away from it though? If you have a tapered board, doesn't it want to track straight naturally?
It can. Depends on also, like I said, how you finish it off. The taper can make it actually also be a little bit too wishy-washy where it wants to keep turning. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't really release right. So, and usually with a taper at 30 millimeters, there's usually some sort of progressive side cut effect to it, to make it just to make it grip a little bit. Because if there's no tail there, it feels like you're, it's like a reverse tic-tac on a skateboard, It's just like, it's gripping, but it's not really gripping. It's kind of like, it's okay for going straight maybe, or not straight, but like, it just kind of always wants to turn. It doesn't really want to go straight, as I was trying to say. It just wants to. So if you go hard on your heels or your toes, the tail will just want to slide off. It wants to keep going. You're like, hey, no, I want to stop. I want to be able to go back the other direction now. And it's like, nope, I want to keep going.
Yeah. So you need to strike that balance between too much or too little, so it can go fast, but also loose some deep gouging turns. Yeah. And that's going to be right around 8. Something like that, right around 8.
Yeah. So and there's 2 ways I go about it. I can cut the difference. I can do something where I can do where I have a little bit tighter on the tail and a little bit more. Like I can do actually more of a progressive side cut, or I can do something where it's pretty tight from just in front of the front foot all the way just before the tail. And that's what I do in the backslash, and that kind of gives it just locks in better, versus having it be too mellow and then really bites at the tail. And my riding right now, I've gotten away from where it just bites only at the tail. That part, like some people love it, and I do that for customers, they love it. But for me, I still kind of like something where it's like, I like both feet working, I like to be able to push through a carve. If I want to make it tighter, I can make it tighter. So,
I mean, I like to do slashes, which means like loosening the tail sometimes, right? And I'll carve like big, high speed turns, but I like to like kind of loose the tail and bank it off things. You know what I mean? Like if there's any terrain features or side hits or anything like that,
Yeah, and that's where sometimes, I like progressive side cuts, like like I said, where it kicks out a bit. The side cut gets a little bit steeper right before the tail. Mm-hmm. But there's times like what you're talking about, and that's what I like too, is I like the freedom to be able to let the tail actually kind of release.
Yeah.
only when I want it to, not because it wants to do it, you know?
Exactly. That's the key, right? Otherwise, you're going to get yourself in trouble, you know?
Yeah, and so that's where I would do something. I would just do it generally overall, a more deep side cut, and then just have it, you know, feather out a little bit on the tail just to last a little bit, just to keep it, you know, stable. And I did something similar like that with, you know, in the original Solitudes. I mean, those guys, actually, like Bassett, you know, those guys rode the Solitude up there, and
I did too in the Flow tailgate days.
Yeah, I got that big mountain, you know, doing a big Verbier, doing contests on him and stuff like that, and those side cuts are pretty fun for that, you know, where it's like those had that type of feeling I was talking about, where that board didn't have that much taper to it, but it had something where it was like you can maneuver it around.
Right. Yeah, I just happen to like taper boards, but I think we're onto it with the side cut, because if we can get it to release, but also to be able to hold speed too, that's really the optimal performance feature that I'm looking for Alaskan riding, you know.
Yeah, and the taper can be whatever. I think you said 30.
30, maybe even more. You know, I mean, I just like taper. What's the maximum taper? What's the maximum taper that you've seen on a board?
Oh, max? I don't even. I'm not sure the max taper out there is. Max taper I've done has typically been right around, I think about 30, 35 millimeters is the most taper I've done.
Okay.
Me personally, Dan, he does a lot of the other customer stuff too, so they might have some ones that are more. Mm-hmm. I've been kind of right around I typically keep it between, depending on the board, 20 and 30. So 30 is pretty good.
Okay,
I
yeah.
haven't really ventured past that too much.
Okay, so like right around 30, let's say. I don't want to go lower than that, but I like taper. I know I like taper, so I want something with significant taper. Okay, so a couple of other things to discuss now on the sport design. I mean, I'm starting to really visualize this here. The stance, right? I would guess in powder you'd want the stance set back a little ways, correct?
For this board, I would say, I wouldn't go too far back. Because you want to keep that, you know, that stability up front with the speeds. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you don't need to go too far back. So, typically something like maybe like 30 millimeters back or something like that. So, a little bit over an inch. Mm-hmm. You can also have, you know, extra inserts back there if you want to have it, you know, go back.
Yeah, let's do that for an option. Let's have like an extra pack of inserts. Let's set it back like, let's say, you know, I don't know, 30's what, an inch and a quarter, something like that. So set it back an inch and a quarter, but then give me another full set of inserts so I can go way back if the conditions are really weird, right? Because some of the conditions are just like you just want to be all the way back because you're just diving, or there's a crust layer that will like mess you up because you're gonna, you know, have problem with the crust or something, you know.
Yeah, because in general carving, like, I mean, some people do it. I personally, the more taper I have, the less I set it back for carving. Mm-hmm. But this you're riding a different type of terrain. You're not riding, you know, green runs or whatever. You're not riding groomers.
No, so it will be either the worst conditions ever or the best conditions ever, and very little in between. That's kind of the idea, you know.
So that's why I kind of do like 30, because that gets kind of you. It's kind of a nice in between. I mean, I've done boards where the back, you know, 50, 60 millimeters, and they ride fine they ride awesome in certain conditions, and in other conditions, if I'm actually just carving, I'm like, you know, or it gets like you ride through some trees and it starts getting hard and icy. Then all of a sudden you like have no control of your nose whatsoever, and it gets like kind of funky to ride.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, I think that wraps up setback, which is setback with an option for really setback, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, Roger?
Nothing much.
Roger Sullivan. Mark Sullivan, 30 years earlier. Right?
Yeah.
What's going on? You loving snowboarding?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah? What's the best thing about snowboarding?
Just like, it's a good experience, and it's really good to do with friends and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's why we all got into snowboarding, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the feeling you get when you're getting up in the morning and you're going to go snowboarding?
I get really excited. Sometimes I'm not too excited, though, because sometimes a little tired, but
Yeah.
it's always really fun in the end.
Does Mark pull you out of bed and go like, Roger, it's time to go snowboarding?
Yeah.
He does, huh? Because he's all stoked on snowboarding.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, how much does Mark love snowboarding?
He loves it, like, a lot.
Like a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What's it like being his son? Is it hard? Do you have to compete with the snowboard sometimes?
Yeah, it can be kind of hard to keep up because he is pretty dang fast, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. So you guys race sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So have you donated to our Patreon?
No.
Why the heck not, Raj? Don't you have a job?
I guess I do have a job.
Yeah. What's your job?
I'm the mail guy for the snowboard project.
Wait, you're our mail guy?
Yeah.
Oh, well, at least you didn't get intern position because you'd be making me coffee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that job sucks. Anyway, so you haven't chipped down a couple bucks?
Not yet, but I'm gonna.
Where do you
Get
go?
some.
Where do we go to do that?
We go to patreon.com/the snowboard project.
Yeah. Thank you, Roger. If you didn't get that, patreon.com/the snowboard project. This is the voice of Mark Sullivan 30 years ago. Yeah, that's what he'd sound like.
I now, this is kind of a cosmetic thing, the nose shape. You know what I mean? The nose shape, I think I'd like something that just like stands out from the crowd a little bit. That seems like that's what the trendy thing to do is have a unique nose shape. Maybe I don't know, like one of those like two titties kind of thing where you have like the bump with the dip and the bump, like instead of just a squared off nose, maybe squared off with a little bit of recess in it. How's that sound?
Yeah, could do that.
Okay. Or do you have any other ideas? I mean, what do you think is going to help this?
We've been doing. It's actually been really hard. We've actually done a lot of unique nose and tail shapes over the years, and in some cases before a lot of the market did, and so now you kind of see it everywhere. So it's getting really hard to think of something new.
Right.
It used to be.
Is it easier just to pick something off the shelf from somebody else and be like, that's the shape I like?
You know what you can do is you can sit there and you can go, hey, I like this.
Mm-hmm.
But once we start getting the shape, we start getting the width of the nose, the length of the nose all dialed in, that shape can change quite a bit.
Right.
So that's where it gets like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how much does the overall shape of the board affect the mandatory shape of the nose? Like what your options are for a nose shape?
I mean, if it's like, obviously if it's something where it's like a 300 millimeter long nose versus a 200 millimeter long nose, the shape is going to be, obviously this is going to look a lot different. So like some stuff that looks pretty cool on a, slightly directional board might look really bad on a really long nose, because it gets so thin when it gets long, up towards the tip. So.
Yeah, but I don't want the nose to be super extended just because I have this feeling that the more edge contact I have with the snow, the more stable it'll be at speed.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely, I mean, I've done a few. We've done like a little, you do something where, I send you that one shape. There's things like that where you can do like a little reverse notch in there, a little mini swallowtail if you like for the nose. Or you can do something where it's a little bit more extended out, more gradual. So and basically sometimes I just start drawing things and just see what looks good. Like, oh, that looks cool. And then I kind of go from there. So I might physically draw something out just to get an idea. Then I'll just do it on a computer and kind of just see what things start coming out as. And then I'm, okay. But yeah, that would be then the having something where it's a little bit longer on the edge of the nose than in the middle.
Cool. And the board that I think about in the back of my head is like the 1986, 87 Flite, Wavehog, and Predator. That's just like a board from my youth that like I rode. It was my first sponsor. And so I just like, if you're going to have a unique nose shape, why not copy, something that has a personal connection?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've done that with, well, actually, here's a brand I can say, D-Day. I forgot about them. D-Day, they say I'm cool to their names.
Okay.
I did like Heavy Tools. I did a Monty Roach. They had like that. I did that tail for.
Totally. It was like Heavy Tools, Monty Roach kind of.
Yeah, so I thought they'd be like all over it, and they weren't so much. So I was like, I think you guys like this stuff because they had Roach on the team. But actually, I ended up using some version of that for Eric Messier's tail. Was the Heavy Tools.
Well, let's put that tail on my nose. I mean, it's just something a little bit different. It's something with a personal connection, and I think that's really cool. So let's go in that direction. Now bass. So here's my thoughts on bass. Is like I want something that's going to be durable. Or why don't you just run me through the kind of options of what the different basses mean, right? Instead of me telling you what I want, you tell me what's out there and what the advantages are of different basses.
Yeah, there's different options as far as obviously we're going to do something centered. Centered is going to be not just a speed thing, but it's also going to be it's a harder material than the extruded bases. Mm-hmm. So if you hit any rocks, it'll take a little bit more of a beating. Although extruded is easier to finish, I think centered is going to be just it's a little bit more tougher material and it's a little bit faster. From there, we go into if you want something with a graphite base, if you want something that's just super fast, or if you just want something. So we have two different graphite. We have a graphite and then we have a carbon sintered base. A carbon sintered base isn't necessarily as fast. It's not as fast as the graphite, but it's a little bit harder than the graphite base. Graphite bases are fast, but a little bit softer.
Okay, so here's the challenge you have in Alaska that's unique, all right? Is that like you're either accessing the terrain, or I'm accessing terrain anyway, by snowmobile or helicopter, right? Mm-hmm. And so what ends up happening is you get this like rime of ice on your base. And before you drop in, you have to scrape your base to get all the ice off, otherwise it's going to be sticky, right?
Yeah.
Is there a base material that will be less prone to gathering that ice on your base?
We did experiment with a silicone base. We didn't get it quite figured out, because it's definitely hard to finish. Didn't like the stone grinding. So it was kind of funky, but that was a base that, we worked with the supplier on a little bit. That was something with nothing sticks to it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. It's an interesting base. So that was something I would love to try again, but we only had a little bit of it.
Well, if you want to try it on this board, I'd love to try out one of those, just based on the fact that, like, number one, I'm not really tuning this board very much, right? I may do the side edges a little bit, but really it's like you wax it and that's about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can't really tune this bass too much. You pretty much what you get is what you get.
Okay.
So
well, if you have any of that laying around, I wouldn't mind trying it just because it sounds like it's out of the box, But if not, what would be the next alternative base material from a standard material? Does graphite is it stickier than just regular, or I mean, is there one advantage of one material over another?
Well, we use material. The graphite we use was actually originally developed for indoor slopes. It was meant for the harshness of the. Because what would happen was the bases would turn, white along the edges, and so this board, and since then it's used on downhill skis a lot. So it's a really good fast base. There's, I would say, that might be kind of tough with the snowmobiling up. I would have to kind of see what that actually all entails a little.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's just like imagine if you stuck your base in front of a snow gun, right? And it really, I mean, it really gathers that ice. And then, I mean, I always carry a scraper with me, but sometimes it takes about 5 seconds to scrape your base, and sometimes you sit there for 5 minutes and scrape your base. And so my goal would be to spend less time scraping and more time, accessing and riding.
Yeah. Well, I think also, dude, you probably got a lot of exhaust from the snowmobiles too. So, and that's what kind of happens on the indoor slopes. They have, there's not a whole lot of air going on in there. So they'll groom them. They're using diesel, the snow gets kind of nasty too. So I'm sure if you have trails you're going on just from the snowmobiles, probably getting some exhaust. You probably got some.
It's deep powder.
Trapping.
We're going to deep house, so I don't know how much exhaust will actually hit that. And the exhaust, by the way, for the snowmobile is like directly under the front of the snowmobile. It shoots straight down. And the board is like up behind you. So I don't know if too much exhaust is hitting it,
Okay. Gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that one I would have to kind of take a look at. The other thing would be is like, the type of stone grind you'd want on the base. I would do something with we usually do kind of a double stone grind where we do a light stone finish, and then we do another stone that polishes it. So it actually has like areas of smooth and areas of the structure.
Okay.
And I like that one because I've done, like, we did a board. Actually, we had too deep of a stone grind on it.
Yeah.
And that thing sucked in dry powder. It just didn't want to turn. And when he did turn, it wanted to stop. It was not good.
Okay.
So you can do so I do usually a pretty mellow one. And then, like I said, have areas or no stone at all. You can do that too. You can just have a smooth finish. So.
And the stone grind will add structure, which will make the base have less suction over the snow.
Yeah.
Will that make it also more sticky to ice because it has more surface area, let's say, for the crystals to grab onto?
It's a stone helps way more in wet snow than dry snow. If you have like a full stone grind, you're in drier snow, it can actually be slower than just a normal belt finish. So that's why I kind of do like a little bit of it's like a half and half. It's like in between. So, well,
let's say this board is designed for dry powder, right? Because honestly, you want to have it so it performs the best in the best conditions.
I would skip the stone.
Okay, let's skip it. Put that off to the side. That can be for the guys who are going to Hood in the summer.
Yeah, they can go. Yeah, they can go. They can go get their own stone at their local shop.
Yeah. Okay. So, what other aspects have we not discussed as far as this board goes?
How wide are we talking?
I have a size 9 foot, so it doesn't need to be too wide. I'm not trying to make a short fat here. I'm trying to make a performance board. So I would say maybe the waist width would be like 25.5, between 25.5 and 26, somewhere in there. Is all I would need.
I would keep it closer to 26 because with the side cut being set. Well, yeah, we got the taper, but the side cut being set back farther.
Mm-hmm.
Your waist is actually closer to your back foot now, so it's not going to be as wide as.
Gotcha.
Like a normal. Like if you rode a twin at 255. And you go, oh, my feet don't hang over. Well, on this board, they might. Your back foot. Your front foot won't for sure. Front foot will be totally fine. Yeah. But your back foot could get a little.
Okay, so let's go with 26.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I think we have most of the. Okay, any other things that I'm not thinking of as far as the design goes?
Does the tail have the same design element as the nose?
What do you mean the same design? Shape?
Like kind of the knot, like that type of idea.
I think it could either be just a round tail. Doesn't need to be fancy. I think that one fancy shape, one regular shape. How about that?
Okay.
Sounds
good.
maybe easier to make too. I'm guessing if it's got a nothing's easier to make. Okay. Graphic wise, nothing special there. Either translucent or just a graphic printed on a sheet. I don't need stamps or foils or any of those bells and whistles.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Sidewall, we got ABS, which I don't recommend.
Let's go PU.
So I say it's PU. Okay.
Yep.
We got PU sidewall, and we can do different colors, but we'll have to talk about that because it's typically when we do a batch, we need to do X amount of quantity. So it kind of sucks just to make.
I'll take whatever color. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, whatever color. I mean, I'm not trying to make this a Pablo Picasso. I'm trying to make it a Ferrari for powder.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, there's some different colors. I'll show you. We'll see what's going on.
Cool.
The other is core. So, are you going for is lightness super important? Or?
No. I mean, lightness and dampening are kind of at two ends of the spectrum, aren't they?
Yep.
And
yeah, they can. So I would say we have a poplar. We can do a poplar with bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
And we do I basically put bamboo, some bamboo stringers in there.
Okay.
And bamboo is nice. Bamboo adds weight, so I don't use too much of it, but just kind of, put maybe like 3 strips in there or something like that. Just it just has a different little flex than poplar. So
okay, yeah. I mean, that would be good. Even more bamboo, maybe even just because the boards that I've always traditionally liked are heavier, right? And like when I think about the boards that I hate are like the ones that have honeycomb cores. Those are the boards that just don't have any dampening to me. It's like if you were to hit a baseball with a good grip or with like a loose grip with a wood bat, or you were to hit a baseball with a loose grip on an aluminum bat, It just seems like the heavier material is more damp and more supple in terms of its ride.
Yep.
So if you're making a custom core for it, might as well go for a little bit extra just to try it, right? Just to try a little bit more. Yeah. Hey, just want to send a quick shout to Nick Wheeler. He's the guy who provides the music, the little interludes, all that stuff. Look him up. He's online, Instagram. Nick Wheeler's his name. Support Nick Wheeler as well as the Snowboard Project. Okay, so now, final question for this part of the interview. And I think we're going to have to follow up after we get somewhere with this just to see how things are going. Maybe keep people updated on this because this actually is turning into kind of a fun little thing. Is this similar to any boards you're making now? Now that we've kind of established the parameters, is this similar to anything that's out there right now? Or how similar is it? How similar is it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the board that's out there now.
I mean, it could be from any brand. It doesn't have to be one that you make. Any board out there that you can think of, because I know you see all the powder boards at the powwow and whatever.
Yeah, people are pretty scared to go above 160. If it's over 159, they think the world's going to end.
Man, they should come ride Alaska with me sometime, because honestly, I won't ride anything less than 160. I won't. You know?
I got to ride Baker with Sean Farmer and Matt Goodwill one time. So, yeah, that was and I was on a little board, and I was hating it. Farmer was on a huge thing. Goodwill was on a 77.
Yep. And you were on like a 56. You're like, hey, guys, wait for me.
Yeah, I was a little barfoot twin, and there's cutting across mogul fields to do backflips over cat tracks. I was like, I could barely even make it to the thing. I was hating it.
Yeah. Well, good. Then I think maybe I am onto something a little bit different. And I was actually asking that question because it's like, in my mind, my perfect powder board doesn't exist. And so based on the answer to that question, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, there's probably some Euro brands that do stuff. I mean, I think you might see something like was it like a Nidecker? Was it platinum or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that?
But does that have the same kind of taper that we're talking about and the other characteristic?
I can't remember what it has, to be honest. But they have that where it's got, a little bit longer nose, and it's got quite a bit of. Actually, they don't run a whole lot of taper on Nidecker, so maybe not so much that one. Cool. Yeah, it's like usually at this length, there's not much taper in it. So these are basically people are thinking just riding big long Euro slopes, doing 3,000 meter icy stuff, not necessarily Alaska.
Right. Well, this is a board that I think that we've just designed for a very specific use. And I think that, snowboards are getting more and more niche. There's a lot of general boards out there, but now with the rise of like the powder board movement, there's definitely more niche, the short fats that go in the trees or whatever, right? So this is a board that in my mind is designed just for the kind of terrain and conditions we have in Alaska.
Yeah. Something to handle the deep and the steep.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. I can't tell you how excited I am to ride this board. Woo! So how long does it take now that we've had this first discussion? What are the next steps in the process? How do we take it from here?
We'll have to get a basic material list, and then we'll do a what the cost is.
Yep.
And then to get started, and because we have to open up a cassette. Yep. And maybe a mold too as well, a form mold, I'm not sure. But so we have to open those up. So we'll have to do an invoice, and then
absolutely, mold.
Molds just.
What are the ballpark prices? Just ballpark on what it costs to get my new shape into existence.
Well, depends on how many you're making is a big thing. Molds, probably like a full mold would be right around. Kind of varies, but basically be right around $2,000 for the mold and cassette. And that's 2 cassettes, all the edge bending elements to it. So.
All right. So I might have to make a few of these things and spread them around just to cover my costs, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
actually cheap. Typically molds at factories, if you're just doing something, it's, closer to, $4,000.
Yep.
Even in China.
And that's like basically one mold is the camber, how much camber it has, and the other one would be kind of like the shape, the outline of the board.
Yeah, I call it the cassette would be the shape, would be the outline.
Mm-hmm.
That's about half the price.
Mm-hmm.
And then other parts, the actual form, which would be like your camber, rocker, stuff like that,
Cool.
Tip and tail kick.
Okay, so we're talking about $2,000 setup. We're not going to talk about board prices. People can find you. If they want to start their own brand and do this on their own, they can find you at gp87.com. I'm sure your contact information is up there, right? But man, and I've been snowboarding, by the way, for like 30 plus years. I've even made a few boards myself. I've done all sorts of stuff, but this to me is going to be a really exciting process because I think that, this is something a little bit new and different than any of the boards that I've seen in the market. So, I'm going to have to follow up interview you again, Eric. We're going to keep GP87 in the spotlight here for a bit.
And we need a follow-up interview in Alaska. I think that would be...
in fact, you should come up to Cloud Mountain. And to the house I built last summer. To me, it's like my ultimate think tank for snowboarding. It is the ultimate think tank for snowboarding. So if you want to get into the flow state in terms of board design, I highly recommend you paying me a visit.
I would like that a lot.
Cool, you're invited. Right on. Well,
Awesome.
Thanks, Eric Luthart. I'll be in touch. And this has been the Snowboard Project, Part 2. Eric Luthart from GP87, and that was pretty exciting. So thank you again.
Yeah, it was great talking to you, man.
Cool.
On behalf of Mark Sullivan and the Beeve, thanks for listening to the Snowboard Project. Remember, ride fast, take chances, dream big, and take action. And for God's sake, don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.